what's the best way to keep learning when you can't go to Sweden all the time? So what's the best way to keep up a pace when you're not in the country?
So I need to add something to this. There is the best way is the best way for you. So
yes.
if we say this is the best way, it might not be the best way for one particular person. But there are optimal ways of doing things, maybe, but they don't necessarily have to be the best ways.
No, it's not like a one size fits all.
Yeah, because it's so learning a language is difficult. It really is.
Yeah, it is. It takes time. So what would you say the best way to keep learning when you can't go to the country, or because I feel like sometimes people are like, oh well, you can't learn a language without living there, and I actually think that's bullshit. Excuse me. I think it's rubbish. Of course you can learn a language when you're not living in the country. You don't have to live there in order to progress.
Sometimes it hinders you if you live in the country while learning. If you're at a stage where you're not ready to be in the country, it might actually stop you from, because you kind of get overwhelmed by all the Swedishness when you come to Sweden.
All the Swedishness, all the weird Swedishness, yeah.
I mean, I get overwhelmed when I go to Sweden, so I'm kind of Swedish.
You're kind of Swedish.
Half.
Yeah. Well, I would say, I mean, of course, today with technology, there's so many things that you can do.
Yeah.
Of course, I mean, I probably don't need to tell you this, but there's stuff on YouTube. You can go to the Swedish radio, sr.se, sr.se, and have Swedish radio online, and you can listen to it. There's a good app that you can have on your phone, and you can listen to podcasts on there.
You listen to Spotify, I think they have as well.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And there is a app that I use for my kids when they were much younger. It was a app to have them go to sleep. So you had all these animals in a house, in a barn or whatever around, and you could have that in different languages. So you had it in English, and then you could switch to Swedish, and then you would say good night little piggy or whatever, and good night little spider, and then you would have a spider coming down. So you would get the words and you would get the hearing from it as well.
Nice. That's nice. Do you remember what that app was called?
No, it was so long. But it shouldn't be too hard to find it because it's on the App Store. So if you have an iPad, you should be able to type. I'm not an Apple person, so but I'm sure that if you know, there's probably similar stuff as well, because this was a couple of years ago now.
Yeah.
This was probably, I don't know, 5 years ago or something. So.
Yeah. And I mean, of course, like watch Swedish movies and try and surround. I'm also a big fan of listen to Swedish music.
Yeah, absolutely.
With the Swedish lyrics, right? I mean, that's a nice way to
ballads, Swedish ballads from like the 70s or stuff like that. Like old.
What are you thinking about?
I'm thinking about
like Ted Gärdestad.
Ted Gärdestad, yeah, and I'm thinking about all these kind of visor, folkvisor.
Yeah.
From Evert Taube or.
Actually, I have on Spotify. I can put that out after this live session. I have it on Spotify, a playlist with only Swedish, music from Sweden with Swedish lyrics. So I can put that into the comments afterwards, so you can listen to that.
Ge din morgon is a favorite one.
Who was that?
That was Fred
Åkerlund.
He's good.
Yeah. So I think there are definitely, you can use technology to surround yourself with a lot of Swedish language. Yeah. Technology, films, kind of cultural stuff.
And reading.
Reading, of course. Yeah.
There are 8 sidor.
Yeah.
There are other places you can read as well. So.
Yeah.
You don't have to be in Sweden.
No, and also I would say I know several of my students have bought easy to read books from LL förlag, which are the same people that give out 8 sidor.
Okay.
And you can actually order online and they will send you against an invoice, I think, which is very trusting. So, and there in that one, I'll put the link after the session as well to that one. And there you can actually choose, they have different levels. So not like the A1, A2 level, but it's like super easy, easy, moderately easy, and there's like different gradings of books. And some of them are kind of books that are written for that purpose, but there's also a lot of classics actually. I mean, like Fotografens död that we use in...
I've read it about 1 billion times by now.
We use it, it's a good book.
I know it by heart.
It's Henning Mankell. So the guy who wrote all the Wallander books. So that one, I think is, yeah, it's good. Don't say who the murderer is. Don't give
Wallander himself is the murderer.
But that one is from Lepplas förlag.
Yeah. There's a lot of nodding in that book.
Oh yeah, he nods a lot.
So if you need to learn the word for nodding, you should read that book.
Yeah.
Because you won't forget it after you've read it.
Yeah. It keeps coming up. So yeah, I would say that's a nice way to... One thing that I would say, and I don't know if you agree with me or not, but sometimes people say that, oh yes, I'm gonna buy some books. I'm just gonna buy children's books because it's easy. And I say, no, don't do that.
Don't do that. And it's what annoys, or it shouldn't annoy me, but what people usually say, oh, I'm gonna get the classics. I'll get Astrid Lindgren.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna read her books. And I'm like, well, those books were written 50 years ago, 60 years ago.
And the language is like, and you're also like, there's so many occupations and words for which has to do with like an older type of Swedish society, things that we don't have anymore.
Yeah.
Come on.
Swedish society has changed a lot since Astrid Lindgren wrote her books.
Sorry,
it's much better to read books like, so I'm going to steal this question from you now.
Yeah.
So I met the author of a book series that is very popular in Sweden at the moment called, oh my gosh, what's the name? It's a detective bureau. So there are 2 kids having this detective stories basically. And what he's using in his books, I spoke to him about this. He's using old-fashioned language, kind of is Astrid Lindgren. And then he's using new modern language mixed up with it. So it's kind of a little bit of both. And I think that could be good. I've had one student already who, Lasse-Majas detektivbyrå.
Oh, Lasse-Majas detektivbyrå.
Yes, that's what they call it. Yeah,
I'm familiar with that one.
Yeah. So I met him and his lovely wife once, and you know, we talked about these things, and it's really good if you're learning. I mean, you'll have to be, you can't be a beginner either to do that, because all these books kind of require that you know a little bit of Swedish before you start.
Yeah.
And I think most Swedish fairy tales or, you know, children's stories require you to have some basic level of understanding, regardless. But don't start with Astrid Lindgren, because that is...
It's difficult.
Yeah.
It is really, really difficult. I wouldn't say that's a beginner's.
No.
At all. And I guess if you're at the level A1, so kind of, you know, you're a beginner, you're just building up to things like being able to order in a cafe, or, you know, talking about yourself a little bit. I guess there's not that much that you can do in terms of reading. You are a little bit stuck, I feel, with the course books. So like whatever you use, Livsstart or whatever, you know, there is a level in the beginning, or a phase in the beginning, where you just have to knuckle down and accumulate vocab.
Yeah, and there are websites. There are websites online. We can provide a link. Unga Fakta, for example. They have
write
like
this down actually, because we've said we're gonna give links. I have to remember this.
Right. So Unga Fakta has, you know, stuff about the Vikings, for example.
Yeah.
Or other things, and it's in Swedish, and it's for kids.
Yeah.
So it's written in a way that should be okay for kids. And if you're on a certain level with the language, then you should be able to
understand that.
understand.
Yeah.
I've read through it, and it seems to be on a kind of A2 level, maybe early A2 level.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And I've used that with my kids I taught in Svenska skolan, and they, they understood it, and so should be fun.
And of course, the other way to keep learning when you are not in the country is to try and find a conversation partner.
Yeah.
Somehow, if you can.
Absolutely.
And of course, that is really, really great. If you can. I mean, if you have somebody where you live that you can pester and, or I don't know, buy a fika for or something.
Yeah.
That's great. Or I mean, there are also websites that you can use for like language exchange and so on. So if you, I don't know, I suppose if it's a little bit difficult with Swedish, I have to say, because a lot of Swedes speak very good English.
Yeah.
So then people are not really gonna want to learn English because they learn it at school. We learn it at school, don't we? So
from TV, that's what I know.
From TV, yeah, that's right. But yeah, if you can find somebody either via Skype or in person, then of course that's another good way to just keep up your motivation, get some practice, I think.
Yeah, stay active on the Facebook page.
Yeah, that's another thing as well. Maybe like join some groups on Facebook, some Swedish groups that are dealing with or that are about something that you are interested in. And even if you don't have to take part, you don't have to write anything, but you can just like read what they write, the comments and so on. That's another good thing that you can do. Or Twitter. Or any social media, I suppose.